Greetings, my friends, and welcome to Snow Queen Collar. I'm really happy to make this with you today, and you can find a supply list over at tinypandora.com, a little more detail and some links. But we're going to start with just a few things today, kind of give you the idea of the possibilities of this. One of the things I really enjoy using is this texture sheet. This is Flutter from Christi, and it makes a lot of interesting impressions that really don't have to be wings. I'm also using templates from the Easy Collar kit from my store, but you can make your own templates and you can do things a lot of different ways. Here's my clay. I'm using Primo Accents, White Gold Glitter, and Primo Pearl, and my wonderful surface effects, and you'll see those in a little while. I'll tell you the names. Here are some rhinestones, and they come in the Easy Collar kit too, and I just sorted out a handful of turquoise and white in case I want to use them. And then I've got beads that I've got on hand, which I know you all have too. And just a hint, I sort them by color in boxes like this. That way when I do a project I don't have to get out, so many different jars and packages. So I'll start by cutting apart my texture sheet. It kills me to cut into this, but I really like the way I can move it around the clay when I have it in smaller little bites like this. So I usually end up doing that to Christi's beautiful texture sheets, and they work out great for me. I get a lot out of it. For my mix today, for the first sheet, I'm going to use a whole pearl and half of the silver. And it makes a really pretty, shimmery, magical thing. So you're going to make a sheet about 5 by 7 on the thickest setting. I say about because all it has to do is fit your template here. Okay, so I've made that sheet, and you can see how it's really shimmery and interesting, and I've got this left. We'll be using that for the other sheet later. So I'm going to take my approximately 5 by 7 sheet, and I'm going to lay my template on it, and I'm going to know that it fits, and I'm going to texturize it. I want to tell you about this template business. A lot of people wanted lucite, okay? They wanted lucite templates like my other templates. But the thing is, I want to be able to change the size of these. So really there was method to my madness. I gave you 2 in the kit, so you can have one that's bigger and one that's smaller. You can, have a lot more flexibility. They're coated in PE plastic, so the clay does not react with them. So I'm going to start making my impressions with my texture sheet. You'll see I didn't use any release on this. I keep the house at about 68 degrees because that's what the clay likes. The people have to wear sweaters. So that's just, that's too bad. Now I'm making a little bit more texture with my medium-sized Sculpey ball stylus. I kind of like an all-over texture on something like this to pick up the color in the surface effects. And once I've got it the way I want to, and I know that I've got enough texture in enough areas to use my template, I take it off the work surface. You can see how much it sticks and everything. I want to take it off of there now because I want to put it up on a piece of parchment. I'm just going to throw it on this piece of scrap cardboard so I can move it around. I made that little tear right there. That's okay. I'll just take my ball stylus and, blend it back out again. So you can be more careful than I was when you lift it off the work surface, but it's all okay. It's clay, and we always have to remember that we're the boss of the clay. It is not the boss of us. So that's good enough, and I'm going to get ready to cut it out. Make sure you don't have it rumpled underneath or anything. Just lay out your template, get all the good parts in there that you want, and just go around it with your craft knife. So I'm cutting it out, being a little bit careful. I go kind of slow. When you see that clay that's left on the back of the template, we'll just peel that off, and we'll be using it for the back. For your second sheet, just like the first one, you've got your half cube of your white gold glitter, and you've got that excess clay from the back, and that's the perfect amount, and you'll still have some left to play with. So I'm going to cut out my base. And this is probably a shade darker, a little more sparkly, and I kind of like that about it. You can texturize it if you want to. Just remember that, to leave the texture against the bowl, because that's the part that's going to show. So here's my base. I've laid it out in a bowl. Now listen, I took a bunch of flack because people said, well, where's the ball? Why didn't you give us a form with the easy colors? Well, because, then you got to pay for shipping for a bowl. Okay? Everybody's got bowls. So you see, it's kind of a medium size, like a giant bowl of cereal or like a regular size salad for me. And all you got to do is smooth your base onto it. Okay? And I'm doing that because I don't want air bubbles underneath. Those will create little indentations. And I'm going to look down there. I'm going to make sure that it's really down tight on the glass. It comes out really nicely. I think you'll really like it. Now you can gauge the size of your collar just by how far you spread those sides that you see on the ends. So when you're looking at that, you may want it really small or not. These are my eye screws. I've got them in the store, but they don't come with this. And I'm using these today because it's just a really easy way to hang things. You can also use head pins or eye pins that you've bent into loops. That's a really effective way to hang things. You could drill holes in it if you wanted to. But I want to just show you this eye screw business today because I think you'll really like it. I'm going to center one up. I'm going to add them in increments like I want on the sides. And I'm going to place them like that. You don't have to use any adhesive right now. They stick really well. I'm going to throw that in the oven. You want to bake it for 30 minutes at 275. So while that's baking, I'm putting some Surface Effects in Tide Pool into my butterfly. I'm just using a pointy brush. It's one of the Goldilocks brushes from my store. And I like it because it's got a nice fine point and it doesn't drop hairs. And it allows me to get those turquoise parts where I want them. And now I'm just really putting the reflections over everything. We'll be doing that a couple times because I want that real shimmery, sparkly look, kind of transparent and kind of magic. Once I've got my colors, and obviously this could be a super colorful butterfly. I'm just using turquoise today. I'm going to take my UV resin. There's different kinds that you can get. I gave you a link to a couple of them, one of them. Anyway, I'm putting out my resin kind of carefully. This is nice and thick. It doesn't run too much. But I'm adding it a little bit at a time so I can kind of coax it all around. And when I've got it the way I want it, I'm going to shoot it with a lighter to take the bubbles out. So, just don't set your texture sheet on fire because, that's no good. But I like the fire part. I'm kind of a pyro and I always look forward to it. You see anything that's, you don't like, you still have the option to adjust it because it hasn't been cured yet. Make your little corrections. And don't forget, you can always nip this off if it's outside the lines. You can nip it off with nail nippers. I've done that. Now I'm going to hit it with a UV flashlight. I love these portable UV lights because even though I put it in a big one later, it immobilizes it when you hit it with a UV flashlight, and that way it doesn't slop all over when you're moving it. So there's the back side. See, that's the really textured side, and it looks really cool. And you can either fill that by going over it again with resin, or you can leave it textured like that. That's your choice. I built this little pier to make my connection. I'm using a regular bail, heart-shaped bail, with just a dot of UV resin. This stuff is the best glue you're ever going to use. It's a real game changer. I'm going to pop those down like that, and so the clay is really holding everything in place, doesn't do any damage to it. And I'm going to hit it with the light, and when I know that it's nice and sturdy, that's about maybe less than 5 minutes, I'll put it in the big UV light to cure. Then I'll flip it over and put some on the back. See that second layer there? Covers the little crack in the center, the little joint area. That's all you got to do. They're just surprisingly strong. So now I can go back to my top layer. I'm putting the reflections on this one first because I want to put the turquoise on and have it be really soft and muted, kind of a dreamy thing. Now if you wanted your colors to be more vivid on your surface effects, you put them on before the reflections, okay? But this was intentional, and you can see how it almost gives it a watercolor vibe. It kind of softens the color by laying out that reflections beforehand. So you're going to want to really practice with this and do experiments, because it's just always pretty. You can't go wrong, and it gives you a lot of control over your final look, you know, that you're going for. So I'm putting this on where I want it. As I said before, with this kind of technique, this could be every color, and I'm just using one color today. So once that's done to your satisfaction, you can put it on your baked piece. Now you see on there I've got it covered in Bacon Bond. I just smeared it on with my finger, and I know it's not going to come off. So I've got my top layer all decorated just the way I like. I'm putting it on here, and I'm going to take a minute to settle it down. And it's really important that you press lightly but firmly on every edge of this, because you're not going to want to try to do that after it's baked. You know, you think, well, you know, if it's lumpy, you know, I'll trim it down. You know, that way lies madness. You're going to hate it. Don't do it. Just go ahead and settle it down beforehand, and take your time while it's still nice and pliable and way within your control. And that way you won't have a lot of cleanup to do, you know, later. So I went around mine. I'm going to fix that one, you know, that one tear that I made, I don't know when, a little while ago. Make sure that it's not too visible. It's not like I'm going to do the whole thing over, right? It's going to look fine. And I'm pressing it and feeling whether it has bubbles. And I've got it now ready to bake. Once it's cured, that was another 45 minutes at 275. I'm going to pop it off, and it's that easy. It comes off of metal that easily. It comes off of glass that easily. It just pops off. Now we get the fun part of shining it up and adding the charms. This is some more UV resin. I don't use 2-part resin for something like this, because I just don't have the patience to wait that long. And also you'll see that I'm going to cure this just very briefly with a light so that it doesn't run. So it's really nice to be able just to arrest the movement of UV resin by using that portable light, just like that. I'm going to be stocking these soon at Tiny Pandora, because everybody wants one, and they don't want to wait, you know, to the end of the world to get one from China. That brush I can use over and over again, because it's not, you know, it's not cured on there. It's wrapped in foil. Now these charms are just some light gauge jump rings with a few beads on them. You're going to want to really, when you shop for your beads and findings, just make sure that your jump rings are thin enough to go through your little beads if that's what you're using. I'm going to end up closing all those up in a few minutes when we get ready to hang them. In the meantime, I've got another jump ring. It's a little heavier gauge, and I'm going to attach it to the ends of the collar. Now I drilled holes and put rings in there. I'd like to tell you that was a design option, but it's just because I forgot to put the bails in the ends, which, you know, I've done about 100 times. That's all right. So I just drill holes in the end, put some rings, same thing. Now you got, you know, extra bails left for your bracelets or whatever. So I put that chain on. I've already tried it on. I know that's the length that I want. I just put it on and cut it in the middle, and that way I don't have to measure it. I'm going to open up our jump rings and put on our pretty closure clasp thing. Toggle, I guess I want to say. See how there's a big one and a little one? I'm showing you both of those because when I bought these, they sent me half big and half little. You know, I like them both, but I don't want to misrepresent it. So you might get a little one, you might get a big one, I don't know. You get gold and silver though, you get both. So now I've got my toggle on there. That's cool. And I'm going to put my things. Now see, right there, you want to make sure that your opening in your ring is not exposed. So I spin it around and put it behind a bead, okay? And that way, you know, it won't slip out of there later on. So just take a minute to make sure that your big fin jump ring has got the opening somewhere hidden, somewhere buried in a bead, okay? Be much more sturdy. And I'm just going to take those other little rings and hang them all up like that. Now we get to do our butterfly. I tried a bunch of different ways with the butterfly, but I really wanted it wiggly and dangly, and it looks really pretty on your chest because that collar sits up very high on your neck. So I used a piece of chain for that. And you get chain in the kit, so you may as well, you get extra. And I like the wiggliness of it. I like the way the little things dangle. So make one. I hope you love it. Bye-bye.